Why do I suddenly have a British accent? I woke up and asked my wife Annette if she wanted coffee, and she started laughing so hard she nearly fell out of bed. I realized I was talking like I'd lived in London my entire life. I tried to say something else in my normal voice, but it came out sounding like Benedict Cumberbatch had possessed my body. Annette thought I was doing a bit and told me to knock it off, but I genuinely couldn't make my regular American accent come out naturally. I could force it if I really concentrated, but it sounded exactly like a British person doing a terrible American impression. Annette had to call my work and tell them I had laryngitis because I couldn't face explaining this to anyone. My doctor said it was probably foreign accent syndrome, which can happen after strokes or head trauma. He ordered an emergency MRI thinking I'd had a mini stroke in my sleep, but the scan came back completely normal with no signs of any stroke or bleeding or tumors. Annette started getting frustrated when I had to call into work for the third day claiming I was sick. The neurologist suggested it might be psychogenic and sent me to a psychiatrist who specialized in conversion disorders. When the anti-anxiety medication didn't work after 6 weeks, Annette accused me of not taking it properly because she thought I was enjoying the attention. My friend Greg thought maybe I'd been hypnotized at the comedy show we'd gone to the week before. We called the venue, but they said the hypnotist never did anything with accents. Annette moved into the guest room saying she couldn't sleep next to someone who was committed to a lie. The speech pathologist wondered if I'd had childhood exposure to British English that was somehow resurfacing. My mom confirmed I'd never had a British nanny or teacher and we'd never lived abroad. She dug out old home videos from when I was 3 and I had a perfect Midwest American accent. Mom stopped inviting me to family dinners because she said my fake accent upset everyone. A coworker suggested carbon monoxide poisoning since that can cause neurological symptoms. We had the fire department check our house, but the levels were completely normal. The inspector said he'd never heard of carbon monoxide causing accent changes anyway. My biggest client threatened to pull their $2 million contract because they'd specifically requested American representatives. I tried speech therapy, but the therapist said something strange was happening. I wasn't just speaking with a British accent, but using British grammar patterns and vocabulary I shouldn't even know. I was saying whilst instead of while and spelling color with a U without thinking. When she couldn't help me, Annette said it proved I was doing it on purpose. Then I remembered I'd had dental work done right before this started and thought maybe the anesthetic had caused nerve damage. The dentist said he'd only used standard local anesthetic that couldn't possibly affect speech patterns. Annette found apartment listings on her laptop and didn't even try to hide them anymore. A researcher at Mayo Clinic thought it might be a rare autoimmune condition affecting the brain. They ran dozens of blood tests looking for antibodies that might attack speech centers. Every test came back negative. I got fired the day we lost the $2 million account, and Annette said she couldn't be married to someone who refused to stop lying even when it cost them everything. My sister found an article about people developing accents after severe allergic reactions. I got tested for every possible allergy, but came back negative for all of them. The allergist said food allergies don't work that way anyway. Annette filed for separation, saying she needed to be with someone she could trust. We tried everything from acupuncture to checking for Lyme disease to brain parasites. One doctor even suggested multiple personality disorder with a British alter ego, but the psychological evaluation ruled that out. Every theory fell apart, and I'd lost my job and my wife, and still sounded like I'd grown up in Southeast London. The speech pathologist who'd been studying my case called 6 months later, saying she'd found something in old medical journals from the 1960s. She'd discovered 3 other cases exactly like mine with American patients who suddenly developed British accents with no medical cause. She tracked down one of the doctors. We drove 3 hours to meet him, and he was 92 years old, but his mind was sharp. When I spoke, he grabbed my wrist and stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. He asked me to say, schedule, and when I pronounced it the British way, he started shaking his head, muttering, not another one. The speech pathologist asked him what he meant, and he looked around like someone might be listening before pulling out an old notebook from his bedside drawer. He flipped through yellowed pages until he found what he was looking for, and turned the notebook toward me to show me 4 words that he said would finally explain everything. Full story on the channel below.